time for the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So over the weekend, I came across a video from our good friend John Russell, who did a video for More Perfect Union and went to the Trump rally in Erie, Pennsylvania, and said, hey, I want to talk to some working people. And lo and behold, what I think he found and what we're going to ask him about is, as we've been saying on this show for years, a lot of the people who voted for Trump just want a job. They want a good family-sustaining job. Said it all the time. My family, otherwise known as the basket of deplorables, always racist, always homophobic, always misogynistic, always all that stuff. Never bothered to vote. Never. This guy got them out to vote. Why? Because he was going to bring back that standard of living that they lost. He was going to bring back that opportunity for their children. That opportunity to work hard, play by the rules, and get ahead, as we've been talking about. And here to share some thoughts on his experience there at the big rally, I've asked John Russell to come talk with us. He's the owner-editor of the Holler newsletter. You can find that at theholler.co. We'll get links out on social media how you can take it out. It's class politics for rednecks and hippies. John, thanks for taking time for us.
Hey, you bet, Rick. Thanks for having me on. Excited to talk again.
So walk me through what takes you to the big Trump rally? What motivates you to go and talk to Trump voters?
I grew up in the Ohio Valley, where a lot of those folks are headquartered. I mean, of course, they're all across the country, but the Ohio Valley is unique. The Ohio Valley was a headquarters of labor union politics. It used to be the place Democrats had to win in Ohio to win statewide. Now, my county where I live and bartend went for Trump by 71%. So I bartend there. I'm on the left, and I make no bones about it. I don't hide that when I'm in the bar, and, we have political conversations all the time, and they don't go how you would expect them to go if you're just watching cable news all the time. It's like you said at the top of the show. A lot of people, if you're clocking into work because you have to do that, you don't have the luxury of not working, you feel in your bones that the system is getting worse and worse and worse and harder to get ahead. And that's how a lot of people in my bar in a county that voted for Donald Trump feel. Had a lot of good conversations in that bar that I thought would be copied over at the rally. Turns out they were.
Now, I was not surprised because, look, I've done the exact same thing. In fact, we did a little over a month-long tour back before the last election where we went through Iowa and Wisconsin and places that used to be, places that had factories, had identities, and had it stripped away from them. And the conversations we had with people were much like you did. I want our identity back. I want our opportunities back. Was there anything that surprised you when you were talking to the people wearing the Trump paraphernalia? Anything that grabbed you and said, why are you wearing that outfit, if you believe that? Anything like that?
There was a ton of stuff like that. Listen, I mean, it wasn't all, sunshine and rainbows,
no,
right?
Of course not.
People, we talk about meeting folks where they are. All right. We are in a place in America where we've had 50 years of a billionaire funded right-wing megaphone that is whispering into the ears of millions of people, especially Trump voters are tuning in and they're hearing a lot of ways that they're supposed to feel about, other Americans, right? And when you go up there and you ask them, you uncork a bottle of the strongest opinions that are coming straight off of cable news. Once those run out and you say, hey, how's your health care? What's your job like? Are you getting into, are you getting out of work, everything that you're putting into it? You hear a lot of surprising stuff, especially for people wearing red hats. We heard that the Cheneys took us into Iraq on a lie, that Halliburton is evil big red, and how, we talked to a gas pad worker who was down in West Virginia working for Halliburton, said, I bring multi-millions of dollars of gas out of the ground every day. I get paid $13 an hour, and it's garbage. It didn't take long to find people in line. Keep in mind, this is one Trump rally, but didn't take long to talk to people in line and hear that politicians should be rejecting donations from billionaires, that we lost our Republican living in oligarchy, that BlackRock and Vanguard have, close to $20 trillion in assets, and that's way too much. All of these things we heard from people standing in line at a Trump rally. And to me, it just underscored that across the political spectrum, people know that if you're working class, you're getting screwed. They want to do something about it. And if there's a party that wants to organize them along, labor lines and make sure they stick together with other people, despite their differences, you could get a long way doing that.
No, and this is what, I had a conversation a little earlier with a woman from Alabama saying, look, the party that figures out how to address her concerns, that her kids don't have the same opportunities she have, that their lives are going to be much more difficult than hers was. The party that figures out how to message that better and actually get something accomplished, they're going to be the ones that people are loyal to, much like FDR and the Democrats of the 30s and 40s. But we're in and you pointed it out, we're in such a polarized time where the media structure is controlled by massive wealth that it's almost impossible for that message to break through. Because look, I've been saying what we've been just talking about since the election in 2016. When everyone's saying, Trump's racist and he's all that. Of course he is. Of course they are. Of course those people are all racist, misogynist, and homophobic. They've always been. But that's not what motivated them. That was the canary in the coal mine going, hey, the working class is hurting. How about we do something?
Yeah, and the thing that stood out to me is that we really have for the past 50 years, we've been in this situation where the loudest voice in the room is billionaire-funded right-wing propaganda, right? Before that, when we really put up all the latest round of wins for workers, Social Security, Medicare, going back to through LBJ and back to FDR, that was built on a well of organized labor and people being organized in their workplace. And since then, it's just been a decline for unions. But I think two things are interesting here. One, the most positive response we got from talking to people in line was when they heard about how UPS workers, stood in hundreds of thousands of numbers strong, went up against one of the largest, most wealthy corporations in America, won themselves a contract worth $30 billion cash in hand. I mean, there it is, right there. That's a positive example. Everybody in line was down for that. And, to me, it showed that there is potential. There's appetite for a new labor movement. And I think, if that comes to pass and we do a lot of labor organizing, that's the kind of thing that might change the politics right now that we feel are really set in stone.
Yeah.
Those kind of politics sold in line.
Let me ask you this, John, because both of us are labor guys. I, for years, have been saying that labor has done a poor job of reaching out to people. In fact, when the Tea Party rose, I was telling the leadership of the unions in my area, you should be sending people to take over that movement. That is our voice. That is our movement. And they say, no, they're all a bunch of crackpots. They let it go. They missed another opportunity. We can look through history and see lost opportunity of lost opportunity. And I think the Trump era was another one of those opportunities where those are labor people who are the most ardent Trump supporters, I think, in this moment.
Oh yeah, 100%. And that was another big takeaway from the rally. I mean, Trump is only as strong as his opposition is weak. Those people were walking into that rally because they are, fed up with a system that is screwing them in many ways, that are material daily life things. They're paying hundreds of dollars a month for healthcare that doesn't cover anything until you spend thousands of dollars. Rents are through the roof. It's becoming harder to own a home. Homes that used to cost $150,000 or $500,000, right? People were walking into that rally because they're done with all of that, right? And I think if labor or a party figures out that, hey, we could present a labor left alternative, right, who is anti-establishment, there are clearly chips on the table for that kind of thing. And, if we don't get that together, I think you can expect people to continue walking into Trump rallies.
Well, I mean, you would argue that was Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, right. We got a lot of interesting answers on that too. We had one person who said he would rather vote for Bernie Sanders before he votes for somebody like a Ted Cruz or Marco Rubio. These are people who want somebody who's anti-establishment. I think Bernie had to, fight both sides really. And we just don't have a scaled up alternative that can offer something to people who are clearly fed up with how things are.
See, that's interesting to me that some of the Trump folks would go after Sanders, considering, when you think of the Trump people, they're anti-socialist, because, Democratic socialist, I wouldn't think would be overly palatable with the red hat on.
You'd be surprised, right? I will say this about the word, there's a lot of staying power in that word socialism, right? But that does fall along age lines. And, I get it. I mean, if you were in grade school, ducking and covering under a desk because the socialists might nuke you, you might have one opinion of that word.
But it wasn't really a socialist I was afraid of nuking me. It was a communist.
Yeah, there you go. Right. So, it all gets scrambled up there. But really, especially when you get into Gen X and millennials and younger than that, it's the scare factor with that word starts to drop off a lot. And I think that could really make politics interesting, the next time that there's a power scramble, because there's an appetite for a labor left kind of candidate.
Do you see anyone on the left, any of the Democratic voices? Do you see any Democrats making a play for that space? Because I see Republicans trying to pivot themselves to being the party of the working class. Now, they've got no policy wins to share. They've got no policies that they can go, hey, look what we did. But I see them trying to pivot. Do you see anyone on the left trying to do better?
Well, I think there's about a handful of people who are the names that we know that are trying to do that. But I think the better point to focus on is, at a time when there are so many new labor wins. I mean, who thought that we would have any union at any Amazon facility? I mean, we had a warehouse go, regardless of the flaws of that effort, an Amazon warehouse unionized. Why didn't we move the White House there? Why aren't we on every single picket line that's coming up to show, as a Democratic Party, this is where our priorities stand? Why aren't we in California, saying to McDonald's workers? I talked to a McDonald's workers in line at the Trump rally. He said, I work very, very hard. I should be paid more. I'm looking at all these union wins out there and thinking, maybe this is for me. That's what we should be doing in California right now. Why aren't our younger candidates who clearly have their eyes on the presidency making a principal stand with McDonald's workers right now? I mean, there's no shortage of opportunities for the Democratic Party, if they want to fix their working class problem, to start showing up on picket lines and making no bones about where they stand.
Let me see. Let me check the official watch. How long has it been since I've been calling for an Adopt a Striker program? Because look, this is not new. This is like, get out there and Obama, wear your comfortable shoes. Get out there and march with the working people. And this is where I think the party has had such a problem of being identified as the party of working people. And it's frustrating to me, because I like some of the policies. I like some of the things Biden has done to this point. I think the manufacturing stuff, the chip stuff, the infrastructure, most certainly. Even though I waited in traffic way too long today and over the weekend, but still moving in a good direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to address one of the pushbacks here. In all of the conversation that we're having right now, the video was a little bit successful, but some of the best critiques there are like, these things that Trump supporters are saying are surprising, but try that as a person of color in line. That's a good point. But I think, we shouldn't be burdening people of color with going out and rescuing the craziest white people at the Trump rallies, right? That's a job for somebody like me. And the other thing is that, people are looking for answers in this system that they feel is broken, and they're heading into political rallies. But we haven't really pushed out the idea broadly to the masses that there's another field that's not politics, and it's the workplace, right? If you want to get over a lot of these cultural divisions, there's no better way than to put people in this with big differences in the same boat, fighting for themselves against the CEOs, the bosses, especially at a really large company. Class solidarity, class unity, that requires people to understand differences and respect each other enough to stick together when people try to divide them, right? So, if we're trying to get over a lot of these cultural war issues, we got to throw people into the same boat and make sure they respect each other enough to fight and stick together and win things like UPS. And Trump voters are there. They're ready to go.
You're preaching to the choir on this one. I mean, I've been saying if you want to reunite the country, we got to reunionize. Because look, people in the same workplace may not agree on all issues, but they got one thing in common. They want to be able to feed their kids and keep a roof over their head. And that is a good place to start. And then you can build from there, which has been my premise for a lot of years. So, the question then becomes, how do we get to that point? And how do we change the laws to make it easier for people to organize and get contracts and make lives better? That's for me the push forward. So last question I've got, is there any hope for the Trump voters? I mean, I hear a lot of my friends on the left going, there's no hope for them, forget them. And even I've said there's some that are fives that you don't waste your time on. But is there any hope?
I think there is. A lot of people will say there's a small minority of them that can't be rescued. The rest of them we might reach out to. I don't think it's quite like that. There is it's cliche, right? But there's two sides that can be brought out in every single person, and we have had right-wing propaganda, billionaire funded, whose job it is to bring out the absolute worst in people. And the place that we're seeing that most often is these Trump rallies. Okay, but there's another side within people that can clearly be reached when you are talking class solidarity, when you are talking about materially improving their lives. And like we just talked about, when you throw people with big differences into the same boat with a common enemy, I think those people, that is the way to get them to kind of heal across a lot of these cultural divisions. So, we, all of us live in this kind of environment of engineered divisions. And I think, if you're listening to this and you're not on the side of Trump voters, when somebody goes out and produces one of these videos where it's just looking at the zoo animals and picking the craziest person and just, kind of dunking on the Trump voters, hey, you're participating in division of the working class, right? If you want a working class movement, it can't happen with just half the working class. Has to be the whole thing. The conversations that we had up there, the willingness and the support for labor action, those are the things that give me hope. And you know what? If I'm not out of time, I want to close with one thing. I'm sitting in West Virginia right now. Labor history, class solidarity, that is our legacy. That's not often talked about in textbooks, but in the 1900s, when miners were joining the UMWA in West Virginia, they swore an oath to never discriminate against another worker on the basis of color, because you have to stick together. If you think you're going to win against the 1% and you're going to discriminate, it's not going to hold up very long. You had workers in the South in Kentucky with the Farm Equipment Workers Union. They were marching, they were electing black leadership. They were marching to integrate towns in the South 20 years before Dr. King marched on Washington. That is our history. It's possible to bring it back, and that's the hope that I have after conversations like this.
No, good stuff, John. I good on you for going. Good on you for the video. I hope folks will take a look at it. But I hope you'll come back and talk to us again real soon, because I too, I'm with you. I have hope that if we can reunionize, we can reunite. Good stuff, man.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for having me on, Rick. Always good to talk this.
You too, our good friend John Russell. Make sure you check out their website, theholler.co, if you want to check out the great work he does. Quick break, right back with your thoughts. Stick around.
From the steel mills of Pennsylvania, to the auto factories of Michigan, to the modern makers movement, manufacturing makes our nation great. I'm Scott Paul, president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. We bring business and labor together to advocate for policies that everyone can agree on. Together, we can strengthen manufacturing and create good-paying American jobs. Help us keep it made in America.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
The old factory towns in America's heartland have been taking a beating. Thing is, though, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. The new CHIPS bill that got passed will bring jobs back home and has already resulted in big announcements of major new factories opening. The American Recovery Package has allowed cities and counties to hire new police officers and firefighters and start rebuilding their communities again. We're finally turning things around after 40 years of screwing over working people. But will we keep moving in the right direction? That's our choice.
It takes a lot to raise a family. A good job, a good salary, and some patience. A lot of people my age are drowning in college debt. But I chose a different path. I'm a member of the IBEW, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. I work hard for my job, and I love what I do. I had a lot of choices for my future, but I made the best choice for my family. IBEW, the right choice.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
I got to tell you, I like John Russell's optimism. I really do. And I said that to him before the segment started. One of the things I love about you, John, is how optimistic you are. Because he believes that everyone is reachable, I think. Now, I know some people that I don't think are reachable, but that doesn't mean you don't try. And again, one of the reasons we did our Working Class Heroes radio tour was to go out and talk to people. To get beyond the inch deep talking point, because what you find is people who just want to focus on here's the talking point, and then to the next talking point and the next talking point, which is why when someone just comes in, they just blather about a bunch of and they have their list of grievances. I don't even pay attention to those because I'm never going to have time to address every grievance. How about we talk about something that you're not going to be so far gone on. And the workplace is that place. We've been saying this for years now. The way we bring people back together is by saying, look, your radical self-interest is involved in being part of this community. The idea that you're going to make better wages, you're going to have better health care, you're going to have better retirement security, that's a huge driver. And, the reason that corporate America has done such a, good job of dividing us and have spent so much money dividing us and tearing us apart is because they know that once we come back together, their profit margins go down, their CEO pay goes down, and it ends up like it was in the old days, where people made a decent, reasonable living. And our CEOs... not so much. Now, let me just finish up with this. You go back to this study done. From 1978 until I think it was like 2019. You had the CEO pay go up. What was it? Something like 940, almost 1,000% from 1978. The workers' pay just went up 12% over that same period. Let's quick get a thought in from what is it? Jack from Wisconsin. Jack, you got a thought quick? Okay, well, that's because that's not on.
Had figured it right when he said divide and conquer. That's the way to destroy the working class, and he was pretty much right in Wisconsin. What your guest just said, excellent point. We've got to figure out a way to get these people back together again.
I appreciate the thought, Jack. Thanks so much, man. And I'm sure John will be thrilled to hear that. But no, I mean, he's spot on. The way we move forward, we come back together. Again, thank you, Jack. Appreciate it. Let's take a quick break. Right back. Stick around.
Hey, this is Ken Casey from the Dropkick Murphys, and you're listening to The Rick Smith Show.
I've been driving buses for 5 years, and my day-to-day routine is I wake up a little earlier than most people. I get on a bus, I go out, I pick up some students and make sure they get to school nice and safe. Here in Fairbanks, Alaska, that can be a challenge because of the winter weather and the icy roads, but I love the job. So the Teamsters are great. They provide us a lot of protections. They've always taken care of their people, made sure that our jobs were secure. We didn't have to worry about whether or not we'd have a job from day to day.
And that's amazing because before we'd be working 4, 6, 8 hours a day and only earning minimum wage was real difficult to make a living. And then the Teamsters pushed a law so we make something we can live off of and not have to have a second job. What absolutely gives me peace of mind, the union membership allows me to focus on this job without having to worry about whether or not my family is going to be taken care of. I'm Andrew Case, and I'm proud to be Teamsters Local 959.
Before we close the program, we want to take a moment to thank our viewers and to share a little bit about why we do what we do. At the Rick Smith Show, we believe that media today is almost entirely controlled by corporate greed. So we have now 24-hour news channels. But instead of 24 hours of news, what we get is 1 hour repeated 24 times, and with tons of commercials creating obscene amounts of profits. Information once presented as a public service has now become a private commodity. So when lies make money, lies are what we get. We get a corporate-controlled rage machine feeding us anger and hate, trying to convince us that our problems are right, left, or red, blue, when they are and always have been up, down, the wealthiest 1% versus the rest of us. Our goal is to be an alternative to that machine, not as a news show with a fancy journalist out front, but as a talk show run by a union truck driver and a team of working-class heroes just like you. Everything we do, both what we get right and what we get wrong, is dedicated to advancing the interests of America's working families. No corporate ad buys, no think tanks, no focus groups, no talking points. We are media by working people, for working people. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you back here next time.